to strap in and get ready.
The leaders in NRL Supercoach are incoming. Bringing you the ultimate insight to help you win your leagues and climb up the rankings. You're now listening to the Insight NRL Show with your hosts, Brain, Matrix, and Whisperer.
Yes, g'day. Welcome back. It is the Inside NRL Show. It's a 5-8 episode, and we are Matrixless today. He's been sinking all sorts of piss, Josh, over the last 4 days, I think it's been. It's been pretty manic for him.
Big weekend for Matrix, just generally being a pisshead, and then obviously into the Super Bowl. We got our first Matrix selfie with the beer at about 9:30 in the morning. I knew it would be a big day and it'd be a big commitment for him to jump up for this one. But similar to Hooker, there's not a whole lot to talk about today when we're discussing 5/8s.
No, there isn't. There is not. But we'll do our best to at least talk about the relevant options anyway. And I mean, for me, there's only a couple, but we'll talk through the rest because it seems to be pretty spread. I guess maybe there's 5 or 6 players we probably need to talk about. So we'll do that. But before we do, obviously, the show is brought to you by The Standard Squeeze, Ryan from Astute Newstead and Bonus Bank. We thank them for their support and yours. Please hit subscribe. Please hit like. Obviously, follow, review, do all those things. We'd love that. And if you haven't yet, join the Unlimited League. It's 777-141. You can go in with a chance to win a Supercoach Champion ring from supercoachchampion.com if you want to go and get your own, or back yourself in and try and win this one. But Josh, we've had a fair few questions and a fair bit going on around the Insight Supercoach World Cup, which is pretty cool. Your idea, mate. I'm not going to take it, but we've put in a bit of time in the background to make this work. And do you want to give the listeners or the viewers an idea of what it is?
Of course. As we all do, we all consider ourselves gun Supercoach NRL players. But if you want to claim the title of overall best Supercoach player, not in the country, not in the Southern Hemisphere, but in the world, a world-exclusive Supercoach World Cup hosted by Insight Fantasy Sports, taking on NRL, AFL, BBL, and NBL. Starting off with the NRL season, basically going through nearly a 12-month stretch of competitions. The NBL, Braino, I'm pretty sure it finishes up this week. So pretty much it's a competition from very early March until the very end of February. So it's a marathon. It's I think of it like an Olympic decathlon. You don't need to be great at every sport, but if you can be thereabouts, you'll be in the mix. It's $10 to join, and it'll be a collective percentage of your score. So if you come top 10% of NRL, come top 5% of AFL, then your score for those two would be 15%. BBL, NBL added on top as well. But yes, just for $10, we'll be paying out the top 10 participants. And if you want to get involved, jump into the Insight Fantasy Sport Discord. The link will be in the description below. Otherwise, feel free to message myself or Braino. Our handles are just at the bottom, or on the official Insight Fantasy Sport accounts as well.
For sure. There's been a bit of shit chat going on in the Insight world. The boys who run the NFL show, Skitty and Mick over there, talking themselves up. They think they're going to win. I don't know.
Yeah,
I reckon they're
flying the AFL flag pretty proud. We've got to do our bit for the NRL. But yes, definitely the Insight Fantasy creator chat, with our little group chat we have with all the creators, has been popping off.
Yeah, it's good fun. Speaking of popping off, 5'8" does not. It just doesn't. It's a pretty ordinary position this year, I think. We'd probably consider maybe 3 guys as premium guys in past years. But 2 of them don't really even pop out at me at all this year because of the draw. So we're kind of left with 1. And believe it or not, he's the 5th most owned 5'8".
Baffles me.
Bizarre.
Absolutely baffles me how I'm looking at Dylan Brown, 17% ownership. Like that. Ezra Mam at 21%. Like, are people just having deja vu from the grand final? Like, I get it. But as we've seen from this week in the news, the Broncos are in crisis, mate. They're all just infighting amongst each other. So, look, the top owned player, Ethan Strange, 238K, 45% owned. Now, we are recording this day of Teamless Tuesday, week 1 trials. Strange has been announced at halfback, which is not a great sign. Weeks is getting first crack at the 6. There's no surprise there. Chevy Stewart's getting first crack at the 1. Xavier Savage on the wing, and Jamal Fogarty's had a little bit of off-season mishaps with some hamstring issues. So it looks like Strange is filling in there, Braino. not great for the 45% of teams that own him, and you and I are both one of them.
Yeah, look, I understand why people own him. Like, he's a good player. It's more, is it his time yet? There's a lot of question marks around that Raiders lineup and how that back line looks in round one. We've got Seb Chris off suspended, which I think is the biggest question mark, isn't it? Like, how many games has he missed? 2, I think, from memory. He's back in round 3 or something.
Yeah, and like the Raiders, they've got a couple of options, but yeah, it really is suspension dependent. You look at Corey Horsburgh as well, like with him and Morgan Smithies potentially being an option, and Strange. Yeah, look, I feel like people might get sucked into him being named round 1 in the centers, and then Chris just walks straight back in. So definitely one to watch. KO Weeks, I think he is the most safe Raider, cheapie to pick in this line. I think he's been brought over for a reason. He'll have first crack at the 6 that Jack Whiten's been departed, and 36% of teams have agreed. Jaden Campbell, 456K at 26% owned. You and I have been not his biggest fans this preseason, and it looks like he's going to be out until at least round 3. The Titans have the bye in round 2. He still is not training. We are 2.5 weeks out from the season, and he is still not training with the first team. Sini has had a ripper preseason, and it looks like he's going to get the start. And I just think with round 2, with the bye, we're not going to be seeing him. And then the question becomes, what happens? Because you don't want to be holding a 456K guy for at least 3 weeks. If he was 250K, then yeah, you can just roll the dice. But the fact that he is as expensive as he is with no guarantee of coming back within the first month is a really off-putting effect. But Braino, talk to me on Ezra Mam. 532K, 21% ownership. I thought you mistyped that and it was 2.1. But 21%. 1 in 5 people own Ezra Mam, and he's never been a relevant person.
I was thinking maybe Matrix had made like 21% like bot accounts and just gone and picked all of his Broncos boys in it. Like, look, I'm not going to go and throw shade at Ezra Mam. The guy's a quality footballer. I'm just unsure whether, and it's fair to say that his game hasn't necessarily translated to Supercoach points. So I'm a little bit maybe concerned, or not concerned. Maybe I'm happy seeing this number because I don't have him and I don't plan on getting him to start the season. So if people want to go and they want to spend 530K on Ezra Mam to start the season, it gives me a bit of a leg up. But I just don't believe that he's the best option when you've got cheaper options in KO Weeks, right? And I'm assuming people are going, Ezra Mam and KO Weeks is their combination there and spending up elsewhere. That'd be the only justification you'd have, really, is just saving cash on Mam instead of Brown.
So, a fun fact, Ezra Mam last year averaged 52, which is fine, but I think that's him, just considering the ball that Reynolds needs and the ball that Walsh needs. So, Ezra Mam averaged 52, so close enough to 60. His percentage of games over 60 was 32%, which would bode for you to be like, okay, well, he's got a massive ceiling. Games over 100 points is a big fat duck egg. None. So no games over 100 and 32% of games over 60, considering he has a 50 average. So he's very much in that 30 to 80 range. And I'm just not sure I'm seeing it with, the touches that Reynolds needs and the touches that Walsh needs. I understand people are looking at it from that grand final perspective because he was unreal, probably scored about 130, 140 points there. But yeah, I mean, if Mam was 430K, if he was at Jaden Campbell price, then I could, potentially look at it. But we always talk about 5 points. We always talk about 10 points of value for these non-keepers. And I just don't see Mam averaging 63, 64 points.
And also, you've got to consider this, right? He's got a really low base. I think his base is like 24 it is. So, I mean, that's not huge. So when you look back at last year, he scored 14 tries last year. That is a lot of tries. Like that, so we're looking at his score and, potentially, is that even inflated? Like, is he going to score 14 tries again? There's every chance he does. Good ball runner, good hole runner. But in saying that, you've got to be very confident that he's going to go and score 14 tries again because the scores don't come in base. And even then, when you look at his create stats, they're not exactly amazing for a guy at 5'8" either. He only averages 11 points in create per game. So, yeah, there's way too many flags there for me.
Also had nearly 20% of his games under 30 points last year as well. So, if you're getting that floor, you want a ceiling. You want someone like a Cody Walker that will just go 150. But Mam didn't have a game over 100 last year, and that's the concerning thing. I'm happy to take a punt on these guys with really low floors if they can show me that they can be, a match winner and a league winner in that ceiling. But yeah, I just don't see Mam being that, and 21% is baffling, as is Dylan Brown at 17. That needs to be 77%. I feel like just with this crop of 5'8s that we have, it's so grim. Before the draw was released, I was just looking at Munster and being like, oh, and Walker as well. Walker's now, potentially going to be out round 1 with a hamstring complaint, and he is a guy that relies on speed and explosiveness to link up with Trell and AJ at the back. So straight away, he's out. Then it comes down to Cam Munster, and he was very inconsistent last year, and we've said all preseason the Melbourne Storm draw is one of the worst in terms of the competition. So then we look at Dylan Brown, and yes, he's 760k, but he is going to be there in round 27 for me, barring disaster or injury. It's so confusing.
Oh yeah, I don't understand. It's quite weird. The only logic in my head that I can think of is people are spending up on Haas. They probably have Harry Grant and Haas in their team, and they've gone, oh, where can I save some cash? It probably has to be 5'8". No one's spending up into RF. Everyone's got 2 gun fullbacks, so everyone's got Nico and Cleary, or for the most part. So if you've got a lot of those other guns, you can't have a gun in every position. So I'd say Dylan Brown, probably for these people, is the one that misses out.
I get that. I think, yeah, if you look at it like a Haas and whoever versus a Brown and a Weeks, then that's your comparison. I can understand not owning Dylan Brown if you do go with a Caesar, but then you're running with a Weeks in round 1 because Caesar has the bye. He's at 345k, 13% owned. We touched on him in the last episode in the halfback, so we're not going to go over him too heavily. Pretty much just all eyes on the trial. The Tigers have named just about a full-strength squad, a full-strength side for this trial up in New Zealand. So be very interesting to see what happens in the trial. I'm going to love if the Tigers scored 0 tries this preseason and we don't get insights to what's going to happen. That'd be the most Supercoach thing of all time. But talking about goal kicking relevance, Kyle Flanagan, 310k as well, 9% owned. If he gets the goal kicking, I'm really interested in running him, and that could sway me off Dylan Brown. I could potentially run a Flanagan and Caesar combo, or a Flanagan and just punt it. Pretty much what I'm doing with Hooker this year. But Flano at 310k, looks like he's going to be playing the 6. There was concerns over him early in the preseason that he'd be rotating through the 9. But as Ronald Volkman's shoulders made of wet Weet-Bix, looks like Kyle Flanagan has been, shoved into that 6 jersey.
Yeah, he's been in and out of my team so far this offseason. And look, I think it all kind of lays on whether he gets the goal kicking, doesn't it? So he's going to be a very close watch over the next 2 weeks. Do they take it off Zach Lomax? Fuck, he was bad last year with the fucking T, wasn't he? Like, he was ordinary.
Yeah.
So
he's been moved to the wing now by all reports as well. Mate, talk about overreacting to some trials. I watched Luke Brooks beat up on a bunch of children on the weekend. 3 try assists in the first half. Looked absolutely unreal. I was getting a lot of messages from people being like, are you going to backtrack on your Luke Brooks statement? But then if you looked at who they played, I want to see him do it again. But yeah, 560k. I've had my mini rant on Luke Brooks. Do you want to add anything to the 560k Tigers outcast? Look,
no, I don't think there's much point. When you sent me the team list that he was playing against, I thought, what's he doing playing SG ball? Well, that's weird that Luke Brooks is playing SG ball. But anyway, it was a pretty ordinary, opposition.
The most recognizable name from that South side was Braden Burns, and if that's your most notable good player, I'm happy to take that. It's a narrative thing. I'm very happy to discard Luke Brooks. Yeah. I'm not going to worry about his trial, but Ben Trebojevich's hat trick, mate, straight in. So it's all about narratives, and you got to take what you can with a pinch of salt. Cam Munster, 720k, 7% owned. Yeah, we said it before. That Melbourne draw is just too tough for me to look at. I'd rather just pay the extra 60k and get Brown, or just go, dirt cheap. It's one of these positions. It's similar to halfback. I feel like pay the top dollar, or just go as cheap as possible.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think Dylan Brown is the premium peak option. If you don't want to spend that much cash, you can come all the way back down to a Caesar or whoever it be. And Caesar with the dual is also quite handy, having the halfback 5'8" dual. So whilst we're not going to do much if you've got Cleary and Hines there, it's nice to have it if you need it. But yeah, we'll talk about Munster a little bit more in depth because there's some interesting stats on him last year. Maybe he did have a bit of a down year. So maybe there's a bounce back, who knows? And in number 10, Tommy Dearden, 592k, 7% owned. He's the 10th most owned player in 5'8". And there's a little bit of interest there, isn't there? He's not that bad. I reckon he could be okay this year.
He broke the North Queensland Cowboys 2K time trial of all time. So if that isn't training the house down, I don't know what it is. He is a guy that can go high. He is a better version than Ezra Mann for Supercoach. I know that Broncos fans love their Ezra Mam, and I think he's a great footy player. But for Supercoach, like we look at a stretch here, Dearden went 75-35, not great. 71-21, not great. 118-95, 179. Like he has probably the best ceiling outside of Cody Walker in this tier list. We saw that against the Tigers in that game where they thumped us. So he can go big, and if Chad Townsend is going to be on the decline and taking less touches per game, and it's going to be the Dearden and Mam show. I'm sorry, Dearden and Mam. It's going to be the Dearden and Drinkwater show. I can definitely, get behind it. His base is 26. He has 17 and create. So I'm happy to sort of join those two together because he's a half. He's going to get more touches. Now we're looking at potentially a 40 floor, and we've seen the ceiling of 170. Like I'm not expecting that, but he's gotten better year on year. It did stall out in the last 2 seasons, but his body's getting better. He's played 17, 21, 23 games, so on the up. Yeah, I like him as sort of if you did want to spend up for like a semi-premium and didn't want to go dirt cheap or go Dylan Brown, I think Dearden's probably my next best.
And their first 6 rounds aren't that bad. Aside from the Newcastle and Broncos matchups, it's not that bad. They play Newcastle at home as well. And then they've got the Dolphins, they've got the Tigers, the Titans, and Parramatta, who all leak Supercoach points like no other team. So, it's not that bad. Like, the Cowboys have a nice draw again, as did they last year. And we all got kind of sucked into that, didn't we?
Read me out that first 6 again, because if we look at the most hundreds conceded by teams last year, the Dolphins were second, the Tigers were fifth, and who was the other team you said?
Titans and
Titans. They were eighth. So,
yep.
All 3 of those teams in the top half of 100-point games conceded last year. So, definitely has the draw to target there. Yes, it's not ideal for those 2 games against 2 of the top 4 defensive Supercoach sides, but we look at Dearden, we know that he has a floor, and if we get those floors, and what you're buying with Dearden, you're going to get low scores, but you're going to get super high ones. If you're happy to stomach those and to target those really good games, then I don't mind Dearden actually.
Let me ask you this: would you go Dearden over Mam?
Yeah, 100%. I'd happily pay the extra 60K, 100%, especially with the draw, especially with the ceiling as well.
Yeah, cool. Like it. Let's dive into these guys a little bit more. We'll talk about Dylan Brown and Munster and Cody Walker. I think they're the 3 kind of premium in terms of price, but also in terms of what we've known from previous Supercoach seasons. They're the guys. They're the guns. But before we do that, guys, make sure to sign up to Insight Unlimited. Insight Unlimited is now launched. So if you want to get a little bit more insight into what we do, how we play the game, our thoughts on our teams, our team reveals, our trades every week, our captains, and get a bit of a background look as to the way that we think and the way that we approach Supercoach. You can sign up to Insight Unlimited. It's only $25 for a full year. It's like 50 cents a week. And you get access to all these extra channels as well, some injury news and updates, team mail, late mail. So make sure to update there and jump into the Insight Discord to sign up.
I'll tell you what, Braino, if you're spending $10 to participate in the World Cup, another 25 won't go too far Australia because it's not limited to just NRL. You get access to every channel, BBL, NBL, AFL, and obviously us in the NRL space. So if you can have a crack and you don't know much about the other sports, there's worse ways to spend your money.
Cash. That's it. When you think about it, you got 4 sports that you're competing in the World Cup. It could be like $6 a sport, really, if you look at it like that. So worthwhile investment. And obviously it's a long season and we'll be there the whole way through. Dylan Brown, mate. Good draw. We've said it from the start. We've talked about him a lot. He has not left my team all preseason. I'm assuming you're in the same boat. It just doesn't make sense to go with anybody else if you go on premium.
Yeah, I'm the patented tinker in the NRL SE world. I probably change it more than I change my undies. But he's been there. The day the game opened to today, he hasn't left. I haven't looked at a draft without him. I haven't looked at being like, oh, what if we save a bit of money here or there? I've just found other ways. Like Dylan Brown's been the guy. I've tinkered with no Cleary. I've tinkered with, Grant. I've tinkered with no premium center wing. I've even looked at Pappenhausen at fullback. There's one guy that hasn't moved, and it's Dylan Brown, and I don't see that moving. One tough game in round 2 versus Penrith, but he has an exceptional career average against Penrith. Actually, he's a guy that doesn't have a flaw. We saw that really down year, not last year, the year before. He had a breakout season in his rookie year, a bit of second-year syndrome, and then bounced back really well last year. So 76.5, projected for about an 80 this year. Buys in 19, 16, 20. So just misses the one major buy round, a Kiwi, so he's not going to be, missing Origin.
Yep.
I'd say 17.5% pod. Just considering the positional value and considering how good he is, under 20% is just absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, the first buy in round 9, but apart from that, in round 2 against Penrith, it's clear sailing, and he has a great career average against Penrith.
Yeah, you make a good point. We look at the hard matchup and we go, oh, Penrith, but then you look at what he does against Penrith and, he seems to be the guy. Now, I guess we talk a lot about base and we talk about creating and evade stats and all that kind of stuff. Like, he's got a 37 base at 5'8". The guy just makes 25 tackles a game for fun. Like you said, there is no flaw. You can load a 55 to 60 on a bad day for Dylan Brown. Can you say that for anybody else in this position, aside from like prime or peak Cam Munster? No, he doesn't even generate those kind of base stats. It's all attack for Munster and evade and create stats. So, I think he's the safest option, and it's like, what's he cost? 60, 50K more than Munster?
Yeah.
Fuck. It's a no-brainer for me.
But in years gone past, he hasn't had that ceiling. He's always been Mr. Consistent. But 5 scores over 100 last year and multiple scores over 80, a career average in 7 games of 60 against Penrith and a low score of 39. So if he walks out against the toughest defensive matchup that you're going to get all season and scores a 39, all right, cool. It's not amazing, but it's a lot better than a 15 that some of these other, a Cody Walker would not surprise me if he finished on 8 points one week and then 180 the next week. Can you go through that? If you're picking risky center wings, I just want some stability. And I think Brown offers that in spades.
Yeah, I'm big on base. Kind of the way that I play Supercoach. I'm big on high upside guys that are going to get you the 140, 150, but I think you want that security in base in certain positions, and he gives you that. He only scored 3 tries last year. I know that obviously he missed 7 games as well, and that's something to consider. But 3 tries is unders for Dylan Brown as well. The guy finds the line well. So, I think he's underpriced, personally.
I think it comes with your risk appetite too. Like I've said on this podcast, you and I are never going to win the $1,000 weekly hop tire score. It's not the way that we play the game. We look at stability over long term. And if you're looking for just, you want to get that 1,500 weekly score and flex to your friends, then Dylan Brown's probably not your guy. But if you're looking for a long-term good investment and over the season, I'm still looking at 17.5%, and I'm just baffled. I generally think that's just so low.
Yep. And I mean, what? It's Bulldogs round 1. Fuck. That could be anything. That could be 130. Panthers, he averages, I think it was 72 or 73, you've said on a previous podcast, which is real handy. Then it's Manly. Then it's this run. Get this run from round 4 to 7. Tigers, Raiders, Cowboys, Dolphins. 3 of those 4 games are at home at CommBank as well. So I reckon we're going to have a lot of people scrambling trying to find cash in round 3 for Dylan Brown.
And that run sounds great. You've also got Manly sandwiched between that, where he averages 74. So, we have a 74 average, and then the Tigers, Raiders, Cowboys, Dolphins, 75% of those games at home, and then Manly again, where he averages 74, as I just said. So, yeah, get past round 2, and even we've said then, it's not even the worst thing in the world, and then it just opens up dramatically. I think the only way you don't run Dylan Brown, Braino, is if you have a hard-on for Mitch Moses. That's the only reason why you wouldn't run Dylan Brown.
Yeah, and we've had multiple conversations about the fact we don't want both. Because, I mean, when you buy into both halves, Parramatta have a bad game, which they're very well known to do. Both of them suffer. And we know Brown suffers less, but Moses could get you 7. So, and that hurts more than anything, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Cam Munster, 728K, averaged 71.3 last year. We're talking about him like he was a scrub who put up 50. He still averaged 70 plus. And there is a bit of, there has to be a little bit of bounce back for him, 73 to 75. But buys in rounds 13, 16, buys in rounds 4, 13, and 19, plays Origin. So he's out 13, 16, and 19, potentially 20, potentially 14, potentially rounds 17 as well. His buy structure is awful. His opening draw is awful. I just can't see a world. If we're paying up for Cam Munster, we want to hold him for the season. And when his opening draw is Penrith, the Warriors, the Knights, and the Broncos, they are 4 of the top 5 defensive teams last year in terms of points conceded. a bye in round 4 and then misses half the season with byes, you couldn't give me 728k to start with Cam Munster.
Can't. This can't. I mean, you said at the start, we talk about him having a bad year last year. 68% of his scores were still over 60 last year. So, like, when you think about it, I feel like I owned him for every score that he did not get 60. And I must have bought him during that kind of period after Origin.
Yeah, I looked at him at a bottom dollar price, like after Origin. I was like, surely it has to be some bounce back. It just never came.
Yep. No, it was awful. 34 in base, though. That's the second best in base in that position. 34 in create and evade, or create and attack. Like, I mean, we know what you're going to get from Cam Munster, but is it now more Jerome Hughes' team in a way? Like, it just seems like Jerome Hughes was kind of grabbing putting the foot on the throat, wasn't he, last year? Like in certain games, he just wanted the ball in his hand and Munster didn't.
Yeah. Does that come down to no Pappenhausen? I'd be very interested to see how the correlation between Pappenhausen comes. We looked at it with Harry Grant in our Hooker podcast. We looked at the correlation between Grant and Pappenhausen. I'm very curious to see if Munster can get back to his best with no Pappenhausen there as well. But yeah, a 32 base, second best base there is. If he had a better draw, there'd be more of a conversation to have. But like I said, he's going to miss 13, 16, 19, potentially games after that as well, and then has the worst draw to start the season that you could ask for, considering the Storm are ranked 4th in terms of defensive Supercoach points conceded, and the first 4 teams he plays are 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th. It cannot get worse for Munster. So I just couldn't do it.
No. It's definitely a no for me, dog.
Can't do it. But I tell you what we can do, standard squeeze. Now, let me tell you, if you're sick of breaking glass bottles, accidentally sinking triple shots because you can't measure a pour properly, you're sick of your beer going warm, maybe you're even sick of your coffee getting cold, then the standard squeeze have everything you need to help drink responsibly and conveniently. Food grade quality plastic, fantastic 4-in-1s. You can go to their website, thestandardsqueeze.com, and you can use the code INSIGHT15 to get yourself 15% off everything in store thanks to the standard squeeze. Now, speaking of maybe guys, we've talked about a guy with base, or both guys with base, probably the two best, and then you think of Cody Walker, and you think probably no base, but a fuckload of create. So he leads create in this position, 32 points per game just in creative stats alone.
Yeah, that left-hand side is brilliant. Tedesco broke the game 3 or 4 years ago when he scored a 199 against the Bulldogs, and then Walker did something that we'd never seen at the time, which was a 203. So we talk about that 22 base, but man, he can go 200 plus. We've seen it before. I think those days are behind him. He is a guy that relies on speed, and he's on the wrong side of 30. And the draw is not ideal. Manly, Broncos, Roosters, Dogs at home, which is nice, but then the Warriors and the Sharks, then a bye, then Melbourne and Penrith. So, out of that first 9 games, there's like 2 of them that I like, and then one of them's a bye. There is some interest levels for me. After that, I'm looking at Trell, I'm looking at Cody, I'm looking at AJ because I have a really good opening up after that. But hey, Madge has come out and said that no one's guaranteed. Maybe Walker finds his way back into the Origin fold. And he has a bye in round 13. If he plays Origin, he's out for 16, 19. But as it stands, he has an okay bye structure. He is a guy that finishes his buys quite early in round 17. Ownership at 3.6%, which is, I think, pretty fair, considering his price, considering the draw. But yeah, he's got that hamstring issue. Just coming into the season, there's no guarantees that he plays round 1. We've talked about this Vegas effect of the fields being ever so smaller, and yeah, I'm not feeling Cody this year.
No. If we're talking draft, we're having probably a different conversation. His draw frees up in the middle and the back end of the year as well for South. So like they're probably a good team to target. But we're talking classic here, and I just think with an extra 60k to go and get Dylan Brown, you do it. But yeah, I agree with you on the grabbing him after the bye, after that tough run. I think that's when things open up and you look at him.
We could be really sitting here saying, hey, use a boost in round 10 and grab the 1, 6, and 5 from the Rabbitohs. So there is a world where they do that, especially, we've seen the reports that Munro's done his collarbone. Campbell Graham's going to be out for nearly half the season. Yeah. They're just going to go left. Like they have to. They're going to have Whiten. They're going to have Trell. They're going to have Cody. They're going to have AJ. Like they're going to have to go left. Like you can't rely on Tane Milne and Isaac Thompson and Richie Kenner and Jacob Gagai to get you to the finals. The way it stands right now, I've got South struggling to make the top 8, And the way that they're going to crack in is by hammering left. And when the draw frees up, I want a piece of Cody. Just want to pass the eye test for those first 2 months. If he comes out and is averaging 40, but he's looking great, I'm still keen on him.
And look, if you're the opposition, are you not just letting Isaac Thompson and Richie Kennar and Tane Milne just beat you? I'd be more than happy to just go, you know what, we're going to stack our left edge defense, and we're just going to cover all the guys on the left. We'll cover AJ, make sure that we nearly double AJ, make Tass beat us on the inside, or Whiten when he gets there in round 3. It just doesn't look good. So unless Cody starts to shift both sides of the field again, he did do a little bit of that last year. But if he starts to maybe shift both sides, maybe we could see something from him. But yeah, the Rabbitohs are in trouble, I reckon.
Is there a polar opposite? Rough. Is there a polar opposite of Walker, Whiten, AJ to Ilias, Kenner / Thompson / Milne? Like, it's just so powerful. If you're defending, you just stack the left and say, look, if they beat us through the guys on the right, then so be it. Like, if Lockie Ilias is going to have one of his best games of his career and they win, sure,
good luck to you. Yeah, that's it. That's what you'd have to do. And as a coach, that's what they're going to be doing. I think they're just going to be going, you know what? Let's keep AJ out of the corner and make fucking Tane Milne beat us through the right edge. So yeah, definitely fade, I think. Now, we're going to skip Cody Nikorima. Are you okay with that?
Pretty self-explanatory. We'll play 14, priced at an average of a lot, and he will average not a lot. So let's just move on.
Yeah. Tommy Dearden, though, we spoke about him. Both some relative interest there for Tom Dearden, 592k with a 58 average. I reckon he could probably go around that 65 mark this year. I think he's taking the next step up. We spoke about him getting better and better every single year, and we saw him have that Origin experience. I think it was the year before last. So, he's starting to come good. I think, like you said, the ceiling is there for him, but the buys 16, 19, not ideal. So he's going to potentially, depending on whether he's around or whether he gets picked for Origin, he's only going to be available for 13 if he isn't picked. So not fantastic for him. And also round 25, we need to think, we're going to be doing a draft episode later on, but round 25 is not when you want to have a buy-in draft. So Cowboys are definitely some options to look at to fade there. But Tommy Dearden, 6.7%, major pod.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're going the route that isn't the road less traveled in terms of that mid-price guy, I think Dearden is him. Then you have to contend with an awkward sort of by a draw. Dolphins at home, Newcastle at home, the Tigers away, Broncos away. So it's sort of up and down a little bit there. It frees up a little bit after that. You got Penrith in round 8, but then pretty smooth sailing after that. We know that he's got those low scores, and if we get those low scores in the tough games, then that's, it's on the tin. You expect that to happen, but we want those games against the Tigers, against the Titans, against, he plays the Tigers and the Titans 4 times in the first 12 weeks or something like that. So, we've seen what you can do to those guys, and I'm actually pretty keen. Interest levels here. Matrix has written likes. I like him, and then is not from me, from you. Are you not keen?
Yeah, I just only think because I'm like, well, I've got Brown. Why do I just not? Why would I bother? What's the point in looking anywhere else? It's kind of like my interest levels for a guy like Mitchell Moses. The guy's a gun, but fuck, I've got Cleary and Hines. What's the point in even looking anywhere else?
Of course. What do you do? Let's say Brad Arthur names Hands and Lussick. Jaden Brayley, we get told he's playing a minute share split, and you need to downgrade. Are you looking at Brown to Dearden as a guy, or are you just off him completely?
No, don't get me wrong. I think that he's a good option if I needed to downgrade. So if I needed to downgrade and I didn't want to pay up for one of the premium guys, I would look at him. Absolutely. I would pick him over Ezra Mam, I think, and you see the disparity in ownership in 22% versus 6.7%. We're picking the 6.7 guy every day of the week. So, yeah.
And that's not a case of just picking a pod for the sake of picking a pod. We generally think that Dearden's a better option.
Yeah, 100%. And look, the Broncos have been better. That's fine.
He does have a 29 credit attack. And as we've said, if Townsend does sort of go on the back foot, we know Chester's good. We know that Drinkwater can play 6 if needs be. If anything happens to Townsend, that credit attack can go up to 35. I'm not going to say Cody Walker levels, but it could definitely improve. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him pushing into the mid-60s this season.
And think who's on that left edge as well. Him and Val Holmes connected really well. I think Val Holmes is going to be a very big focal point of their attack this year. Like, I feel like they've kind of underutilized him a little bit through last season. I feel like there's got to be some lessons learned for Todd Payton last year with how they used Val Holmes. So I'm really hoping that Deard and Holmes connection can come through this year because they're both
Todd
options.
Payton's a lot of lessons to learn by playing Lolo more than 25 minutes and playing Clutter 60, but never happens. In saying that, that left edge will now include Halen Lukey with the departure of Lucian Ledloa. So hopefully a little bit more settled for that left-hand side for the Cowboys as well. But yeah, keen on Din and also keen on Ryan from Astute Newstead.
No, yeah, I'll tell him you said that. He'll be very happy with it. Guys, if you're looking to buy that first home, maybe even an investment property, you're not quite sure how to do it. Maybe it's the first time you've gone through that process. Maybe you're even a current homeowner with an interest rate above 6.2%, which would be a lot of us with all the interest rate hikes lately. We can definitely guarantee there's better options for you, and Ryan from Astute Newstead will do it for you for free. Won't cost you a thing. So you can reach out to Ryan at ryanh@eganwealth.com. He's also on Facebook and Instagram at hammondshl_astute, or you give him a call, 0431 766 784. So just let him know that we sent you. He'll look after you. It won't cost you a thing. And I'm actually using him at the moment. I know a lot of the boys have used him previously through Insight. And he does a cracker job. So go and hit Ryan up if that's if you're in that situation. Josh, we spoke about Ezra Mam. We brought him up nearly in every player, comparing him to a guy we would prefer than Ezra Mam. 52 average. Do we see him breaking a 60 average at 532K to start the season?
You've really projected at 58. I want whoever dealer you've got, give me their number, because like I'm at like a 55. Like, yeah, I think there's going to be some improvement, but like for him to get 10 points of value, I think it's just going to be unrealistic. Coupled with the fact that he's got a terrible first 3 weeks, coupled with the fact he misses 66% of the buy structure. Like, what are you buying him for? Like, he has a decent like round 5 to round 10, plays like everyone that's somewhat shit. But my big thing with Mam is like, it's just a simple math. Like, if there's 50 touches to go around and Walsh and Reynolds take 40 of them, you're going to have less ball for Mam to do stuff with. And I struggle to see these, like, apart from like Cody Walker is the exception. Like, Cody Walker is the only low base 5'8" that dominates. Munster, Brown, they all got great bases. And Walker's an exception because he doesn't have a halfback. Like, it's just 2 options in attack. Like, you've got Reynolds, who still runs the show. You've got Walsh, who arguably was one of the best fullbacks. Like, had one of the best fullback seasons I've ever seen, outside of Barber, outside of Hayne, outside of Turbo. It was just overshadowed by Ponga, who was exceptional. Like, I just don't see a world where Mam kills me. Like, I just don't see me sitting here in round 5 being like, damn, we got Mam wrong, didn't we? Like,
it's like the Jermaine Asako from last year.
Yeah, well, that worked well. Scott Drinkwater. I might be sitting here in round 5, in the round 6 TLT, being like, boys, Mam is 400K and his draw is elite, and Weeks is peaked. Yeah. That could be a realistic possibility, but I'm just not starting with him. Like, and I want that to. All of these opinions that we give are on starting with them because things change during the season, but I just can't start with him at all.
No, I completely agree. Maybe it's you mentioned at the start that he didn't score 100 last year. I'll tell you what, though, he would have got 140 in the grand final. I think someone did the stat. And it must be that. It must be the memory of how good he was in the grand final. And fair shout to him. He was best on field aside from Cleary's last 17 minutes. But, I mean, when you score 14 tries and only average 52 as a playmaker, it's just not there for me.
2 Broncos 5'8" been robbed of Club Churchill's. Anthony Milford in 2015 and now Ezra Mam. So just the curse. But yeah, 21% ownership. Like, I'm not sitting here saying he's terrible, but it's just in comparison to his ownership. Like, if he was 8% owned, I don't care about. I don't have my anti Ezra Mam flag in the ground. Like, it's not enough for me to care about. But the fact it's 21% is just like baffling. That means like if you put every Supercoach in a room and you got 5 guesses, like one of them's going to have Ezra Mam, and that feels really off for me.
Yeah, 10%. I can handle that.
Yeah, it's just like whatever. Like that's the thing. It's like, if someone says, "Oh, what do you think about this player?" and they're 3% owned, I'm like, sure. But if they're like a decent percent ownership, and I'd say decent is like 12 plus, it's just like, okay, well, there's a little bit of traction here, and I'm just not seeing it. Like if you're at that of a pinch for a 5/8, just get in, I think. Like we've projected Caesar at a what? We project him at like a a high 40s.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, low 50s, high 40s, and he is 330k, 200k cheaper.
Yeah. For me, I mean, if you don't believe in the week's hype and you're not really, I mean, and there's plenty of question marks there for Weeks, and we'll talk about him a little bit soon. But if you're not with Weeks and you're not on board, just pay up a little bit more and just get Caesar as your bench 5/8. He could be the safest bench 5/8 that you start with this year at the price. There's plenty of question marks, but I just don't think Ezra's the guy. And I also don't think Matt Burton's the guy, who is the next guy here in this list. 586k. He averaged a 57.5 last year. I mean, I don't necessarily see him doing much more than a 60 at best. But the weekly rubdown boys are very high on Matt Burton. I'm not sure if you've listened to them, but there is.
I have been rubbed down a fair bit. I'm not getting rubbed over Matt Burton though. Like, I guess for draft, because of how skim this position is, like he is a good late round guy. But I think, if all things go well, he averages 60. No guarantees he goal kicks either. Buys in rounds 8, 15, 19, which is great. Plays rounds 13, plays rounds 16, which is ideal. Correct me if I'm wrong. Here's a duel. It shows you how little I've looked at Matt Burton.
He's a duel.
Yeah. And doesn't play rep games, which is nice. But yeah.
It just doesn't. The duel means nothing to me, really. The halfback 5/8 duel means nothing because I don't really plan on moving Hines and Cleary.
Just give him centre wing duel.
that is when we start talking about him. We've got Sexton or Hutchison. Hutchison's been named at halfback and in this trial this weekend, so that'll be an interesting close watch for me. He's a centre wing duel as well, so that'll be interesting. I initially thought
Hutcho's named round 1. He's probably in my team.
Yeah. Okay. I thought that when Burton last year got moved to halfback, he had to play a bit more of an organiser. You could kind of see he didn't really enjoy playing halfback. He didn't enjoy having to do all those things. And I felt like he played worse at halfback. But then I looked at his Supercoach stats, and his Supercoach stats said that he averaged 14 points more in the 8 games he played at halfback than he did at 5/8, which actually really surprised me when I looked at this. He's got a lower base than Cody Walker, mind you, which also really surprised me. So he averaged 66 at halfback in the 8 games through the middle of the season and 52.8 at 5/8 for the rest of the season. Any correlation there or any reason why do you think that's happened? Because honestly, like when you look at the eye test, he looked pretty awful at halfback and comfortable at 5/8.
Yeah, it's surprising to look at those stats because I actually thought Toby Sexton was really good when he came in last year. But like, is this just going to be like, normally it's like when they go to 5/8, especially these running halfbacks. That's why like people are keen on Brooks, because like you become more of a runner. You can use more of your natural line taking on ability. I don't know. Like, I don't really know what Hutchison offers off the ball. Like, he's great on ball. He's got, I think, there's plenty of Roosters guys that have come out and said he's one of, if not got the most footy IQ in the NRL. He offers a lot on the ball. I'm not sure what he offers off the ball. So if he's starting, you would expect Serraldo to be like, look, Matt, do your cool fucking spiral bombs. Apart from that, don't touch the ball inside the 20. Just run. And that's going to take away a lot for Burton in terms of his attack. But I guess the positive thing is they don't have a fullback. Like, they don't. It's very Penrith in the fact that like a lot of try assists for Cleary, a lot of try assists for Luai. Dylan Edwards not so much. He gets his points off base. And I'm not looking at Blake Taff being like, oh, he's a Supercoach killer for Matt Burton. I think Matt Burton at 5/8 could be. I think these might flip this year, especially if Hutcho does get named. In saying that, though, the stats suggest when he's paired with Sexton, he was actually quite well. I never thought I'd say this. I'd prefer Brooks. I don't. Yeah, I suppose I'm saying that
very quickly.
Yeah, I think I would prefer Brooks.
Yeah. Okay. Shout out to Natty and Walker. They're. I don't know how they're going to feel.
Big fans of the show, I imagine. Like, the draw's great to start the season, but there's so many moving parts. Like, I'd much rather the draw suck to start the season. They get their combinations while the draw's terrible, and then it opens up. Like, by the time they get good, they got to play Melbourne, the Knights, and then the bye, and then the Tigers after that. That could be a decent game, fresh off the bye. But then Penrith, like, it's a weird draw structure, I feel like. And Matt Burton is a guy that I just can't evaluate. Like, normally I'm very opinionated and I've got projected for a lot of players, but Matt Burton's a guy that's just like, he could average 45 or he could average 71. Like, it's just like, where do we fall in this range?
And that's, I guess, when we talk about COV, we talk about consistency, we talk about base. He's got a lower base than Cody Walker. His COV is awful. So you don't know what you're going to get from him.
Braino. He can do the big bombs.
Hey, let me just ask Google. Hey, Google, how many points do you get for spiral bombs in Supercoach? 0.
No, but think of that NFL contract he's going to get, man. Like, come on. Like, that's really the appeal for me. Like, it's just like,
I'll pick him in my flex spot in NFL fantasy next year when he's playing for the 49ers or something.
Sleeper app, yeah. Chuck him in. But like, it's just like, it's so. I've got no idea how to like, and that's why I'm not really keen on Sherry. It's why I'm not keen on like any of these Bulldogs outside backs, because it's just like, oh, I'd just much rather Max King, Curran, and Sam Hughes. It's just like, the Dogs are going to be in games until the 60-minute mark, and hopefully they can get better. But these backs, man, like, Burton needs points, and I don't know if the Dogs have them in them just to start the season.
And I'll tell you what, if Blake Taft gets the goal kicking, they both kick around the same percentage on career, around that 73, 74% mark.
Strikes them pretty well. Like, we
Actually,
can't, and Sexton. If Sexton gets the goal kicking, he's a decent kicker. Crichton's a good kicker. Taft's okay. It's just like there's a lot of question marks.
To be fair, Burton's probably the worst career kicker out of the lot that you just mentioned.
Yeah, if Burton doesn't get the kicking, like, just
complete fade.
Speaking
of, I wouldn't say complete fade, but a fade to start the season. Jaden Campbell, like you mentioned at the start of the show, he hasn't been training or hasn't been, but there's a very real chance that he won't be playing round 1. And then with the round 2 bye, do we see Jaden Campbell in round 3? And then everyone's fucking scrambling big time to try and either get this bloke out because they weren't paying attention in round 1, or are we looking at him potentially then in round 5 because their draw stinks from there?
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's a bad buy structure. It's a bad first buy to have if you got an injury cloud, because I'm very confident we don't see him play round 1. Like, I'd be very surprised to see him named round 1 just with the injury. And then if he's named round 3, cool. But then you're picking a guy with a very limited preseason. And these are the things you need to sort of consider. These are the things that stats don't tell you. Like, the draw looks cool. You color coded, it's all green, it's all nice. But like, he's had no preseason. And Adam Elliott comes to mind. Obviously different players, but he's a guy that I have researched heavily. Shit preseason, shit scores, finally got fit, good scores at the end of the season. And I worry that it takes Campbell a month to get up to speed. And then by that time, it's the Warriors away, Melbourne at home, the Cowboys at home, Newcastle at home, and the Broncos away. Like, that's not a great little 5-week stretch by the time he gets fit.
No.
We've already said he averages like 50 at fullback. And Des might get the best out of him during the season. He could be a guy during the middle parts of the season that we look at picking up. But just with all the off-season noise, I can't start with him. I can't pick him up in round 3 either.
No, not at all. You see the graph, you see all the green, but it's just a bit of a facade, I think. I'm pretty happy to move on from him purely because, 26.4% owned. I would assume naturally that maybe this is people that have just made their team a month ago when the app opened and just thought, I'll worry about this before week 1 when we see teams. But I would say that's going to drop to sub 5% when we get to TLT.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, has to. And that's the thing. Like, I'm not jumping up and down about Jaden Campbell's ownership like I was with Mam, because Mam was never a buy in the first place. Whereas Campbell, he still had value. Like, I'm not sitting here being like, he's a bum. Like, I'm not keen on him. I'm not keen as much as other people. I'm still a fan, especially in draft. But I'm not jumping up and down about the ownership because it's just like, when the injuries happened. I haven't touched my team in nearly a week, which feels like a rehab thing to say. Like, I was gonna say, I feel like I'm sitting in like a rehab center, being like, I haven't used in a week. Oh, well done, guys. Like, whereas Campbell's like, and like, if you like, this news hasn't been widely reported. Like, we only know this because we sit on Twitter all day. It's the only reason why we know this news. Like, if you're just a casual bloke that plays Supercoach with his mates, like, you wouldn't know that Campbell hasn't trained. You just look at him being like, oh, he might play fullback. Cool. Yeah. Or you just filter by ownership percentages and being like, oh, he's relatively cheap.
Yeah, that sounds like how I make my AFL team every year until I get to a week out and I'm like, Mick, help me. Please, just these players going to be good.
Just consume about 6 hours worth of fucking content about the last day before the season starts.
Yep, that's me. That's me for AFL, not so much for NRL or the other ones, but yeah, definitely a watch. And obviously, we're going to get more news closer to the season, so you just react to that when we get a bit closer. But the good thing is, 456k, unless he is your starting 5'8", you've got room to move. Go down to Caesar, go down to KO Weeks, go down to someone that's going to free up a fair bit of cash in that position on your bench. So pretty
also
easy move.
Won't have a price change until round 5 if what we're saying is true at the minimum. So yeah, definitely one to move on late.
For sure, definitely. People you should be moving on late as well is Bonus Bank. Now, Bonus Bank are Australia's #1 matched betting site. You can go to bonusbank.com.au. You can take advantage of all of their tools and their tutorials to help you win some money, to start make some tax-free money and some risk-free money today. So you can use the code INSIGHT to get 25% off your first month of their premium subscription. So go bonusbank.com.au. Let's talk cheapies, Josh, because, for me, we've kind of touched on a few of them. We won't talk about Aiden Caesar again. If you want to know about Aiden Caesar and our thoughts on him, you can go back and have a look at the halfback pod. Here's a hint. We like him. Ethan Strange, though, 238k. I reckon I'm just getting trap vibes from Strange with, like we mentioned at the start of the show, Seb Chris is completely fucking up this backline or reliability. And then you add in the Ricky Roulette risk that Ricky Stewart is very well known for. I just have no idea how to read this Raiders team.
Yeah, I was just sitting there trying to carry the one, trying to work out this Raiders math. It just wasn't happening. Good last name, though, if you know, you know. But apart from that, yeah, like not a guy that I'm really... Like, he's in my team, but it's just like a name
placeholder
and a price.
Yeah.
It's just there. And yeah, big trap vibes because he's probably going to get named at center in round 1. And then Chris walks back in and you're like, hey, where the fuck's this guy that I picked? And yeah, it's just going to be an awful time.
Mm-hmm.
KO Weeks, however, 237k, was not impressed with him at Manly. Was played in a bad role, just wasn't given his natural ability. Problem is, like, I wish he was 230k because it's 40k that I could really do with right now, especially with how grim I think Teamless Tuesday is going to be with cheapies. But he's the most safe option in this Manly side, in this Canberra side. But he's a bit shit, isn't he? It's a bit of Isaiah Katoa about him.
You were sprucing fucking Isaiah Katoa in the preseason.
Yeah,
like nothing else.
He's back, maybe. Don't.
Jesus. No. Oh, look, I think KO Weeks is a decent footballer. Obviously, it's still right at the start of his career. We haven't seen the best of him or even let him have those kind of, when you see a player coming through and you're like, holy fuck, this guy's going to be a jet. We just haven't really seen that from KO Weeks just yet, and he hasn't really had the opportunity at Manly to do that either. So, we played him at fullback a lot though at Manly when he got his opportunity. He played at the back, and then he played on the 14 for a little bit too. Like, we just haven't seen enough of him at 5'8" to make a proper decision. But you're right, he is the safest Canberra option because it's pretty much locked into that 6.
Positive being in the line, so a little bit better base than him being at fullback. And yeah, I don't expect Ricky to rely heavily on Chevy Stewart in terms of the playmaking department. No. So Strange and Fogg could get more touch. Sorry, not Strange. Weeks and Fogg could get more touches.
Yeah.
Aiden Caesar, we've mentioned him already. We've mentioned him enough. You don't need 2 Tigers fans to talk more about Tigers players. Kyle Flanagan, 310k, really comes down to goal kicking, doesn't it, with him?
Yeah, I think so. I think I read a couple of people were talking on X and they went to the trial game last week where they went to training and had a look at Kyle Flanagan and the way that they were playing, and he was pretty ball dominant. So Ben Hunt was doing a lot more running and Kyle Flanagan seemed to be the organizer in attack, which was very interesting. So I didn't see this myself. I'm going off what people have said when they were at training in kind of intra-squad trials, but if that comes through and he ends up being a bit more of an organizer, it actually turns me off him a little bit more than anything. I was hoping that it'd be the other way around. He'd be the ball runner and, we'd be looking at Hunt as the organizer, but it seems to be the other way around.
Yeah, I think the Charity Shield's going to be a big test. Just seeing, I don't really give a shit about what happens between the 30-meter line and the 20-meter line. I want to see what happens inside that. And if Flanagan's doing more kicking, then it makes him a little bit more appealing. But also, we get Zach Lomax and Kyle Flanagan in the same team. which is going to be a huge tell with my interest levels when it comes to Carl Flanagan. Because if he's getting the kicking, we can
Different
add
story.
maybe another 8 points. He's a good kicker. So add another 8 points thereabouts to his tally. And, straight away, there's nearly 10 points of value just there enough. So there is a world where Carl Flanagan could be in my team. There is a world where Carl Flanagan could be my 5/8 one. But fuck, a lot would have to happen at Teamless Tuesday for that to happen. Like, I'd need a lot of cash to be freed up if that was the case.
Okay, I did not expect you to say that.
I'm talking like one of the worst Teamless Tuesday rounds ones I've ever seen. Like, I would be talking like Sam Hughes just doesn't play. Who else? There's some cheapies we're banking on. Kale Weeks does a hemi. No, I mean, I've given up on that pipe dream. But like Burbo doesn't get named. Jack Bostock just punches Wayne Bennett in the face one training morning. Like, a lot would have to happen for me not to start with Flano. But there is a world. Straight away, we're nearly finding 10 points of value if he is kicking. We're talking about a lot of ifs here, but not putting the red line through.
Even if he's kicking, we're talking about the Dragons coming last this year. How many opportunities is he going to get?
Like, we can't sit here and be like, oh man, we can't be sitting there stroking ourselves under the desk to Aiden Caesar being like, oh well, he's a stud, and then being like, oh well, Carl Flanagan's useless. Like, it's two peas in the pod. We're just as shit as the Dragons.
But we're Tiger supporters. We're allowed to have those conversations. Right?
Oh mate, this trial against the Warriors, if we win, we're so back. If we lose, it's just a trial. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Locked in for 9th.
Speaking
of,
I was going to say, Lockie Galvin, man, I've never heard Benji Marshall talk about a bloke this hard in a long time. I think he's setting us up for disappointment, but he's gone out of his way a couple of times to really rate Galvin. Looks like he isn't going to get first crack. It looks like it's going to be Bud's. But in saying that, if Bud does have a bad couple of trials, then there's definitely a world where Galvin does get named. Problem is in round 2, not round 1. So you're gambling on enough in round 1.
You can't do it, can you? I mean, imagine if you just get stuck with a bloke, a non-player
He's
on the bench.
Named at 14, which is terrible.
That's even worse. That is even worse. I'd rather him not play.
Imagine him just like getting an 8-pointer, and then like fucking, I don't know, Hands doesn't play round 1. Like, oh no, sorry, that doesn't make sense. But you know what I mean? Like, he's going to become an AE like with 10 points. It's just like, fuck. Like, from a Tigers fan, cool, give him all the game experience. But from a Supercoach standpoint, it's like, don't give him time.
Yeah, probably like a mid-season watch. I mean, maybe Galvin wins the job if Bud Sullivan starts slow or something.
You're saying some Jareem Buller vibes.
Oh,
just a mid-season acquisition.
That would be very nice. And then you just have Dylan Brown. You hold him for the season. You got Lachlan Galvin. You can downgrade when Aiden Caesar's 600k, right? You can just downgrade to Galvin.
Fuck, if you had, when Caesar's 600k, fuck. Well. if you had Galvin and Brown, that would have to be the biggest fucking 5/8 combination you could have.
Yes, absolutely. It would, absolutely.
But
any others to mention, mate?
No, I was going to say that's going to wrap up all the 5/8 options that I can think of right now, unless
for sure. We talked about too many, to be fair.
We need some fucking jewels to come through before round 1. We just need Tommy Sangster and Rob Sutherland to whip up their magic and just give us something.
It's not happening yet, but I think we're close. I mean, and let's just see how these trials go. We've got a week of trials coming up. We might even hop on and do a pod and talk about trial team lists and all that kind of stuff as well, because there's a lot to watch this weekend, isn't there, if you're a keen Supercoacher?
Yeah, I guess we should probably give an update on what's happening. We've got a lot of messages from you guys that potentially are new to Supercoach, so we're going to do a designated Supercoach 101 or Supercoach for Dummies podcast. I expect the numbers on that one to be a little bit lower than usual, just because I assume a lot of our regular listeners won't get much info from it. But it's going to be basically stripping down Supercoach and talking about why players we like them. I did a thread over on X, if you want to go check that out, on sort of how Supercoach analysts, whatever the fuck you call us, break down players and how we decide who's good and who's not. We're going to be doing some trial stuff. If Braino, Matrix, and or I can find the time, we'll do some trial recaps. We will also be doing some drafts, and obviously, we've still got center wing and fullback to go. We haven't worked out exactly how we're going to be doing Teamless Tuesday. Like a preview. We might. Do you want to do? It feels weird. Like, we might do a short one for the first week, and then we might do a proper preview. When the season does kick off with the other 6 games.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, isn't it? That half TLT for Vegas, then you got another TLT the week after. So I mean, yeah, we'll try and we'll go live on a Tuesday night after teams are named, but we don't have anywhere near as much to talk about that first one around. But we'll always answer your questions. We'll do it live so that you can hop on and fire away with all your teams.
Might be more, and rather than a round one preview, it might just be more of a, hey, here are the teams, what questions you have
Q&A
type deal. So
yeah, that's right. So plenty to come. We've still got positions to finish as well. So plenty coming, guys. So stay tuned. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet. We would appreciate that.
The next 2 podcasts will be very, very interesting. Center wing will be even longer than 2RF, and then fullback. Fuck, there's about 7 options to choose from. And that's the most important position to nail. So really keen for the next 2.
Yeah. It's gonna be good. Guys, if you haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit follow, do all those things. We would appreciate that. Center Wings coming up next. Join the Discord, become an unlimited member if you want a bit more access to us and our insight. Join the SC World Cup as well, by the way. You've got to get involved in that. If you missed that at the start of the episode, go all the way back. I'll tag it in the little chapters thing on YouTube if you're on there. And jump in and take on, and maybe you could become the best Supercoach player in the world. Who knows? But we will see you next time for another Insight NRL show. Catch you later.
I guess I have to say it this time because we've got no one else, but cheerio.